The voter registration exercise for the year 2020 has come to an end in Cameroon. Information from the Elections Management Body ELECAM says that there has been a weak turnout of potential voters this year. This is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we shall be hearing from this newscast, Josephine Binzi will be telling us more on that. And the head coach of the Intermediate Lions, Yves Clement Aroga, has convened 30 players for camp on September 15 ahead of the African Nations Championships. The tactician believes that he will put in a winning team that will seal victory for Cameroon when the tournament finally kicks off on home soil. That will be next year. Those are top stories. Good evening and thanks for joining us. You're watching the Primetime Newscast on STV. The Elections Management Body ELECAM has ended the registration of potential voters into the electoral register for the year 2020 today. 2020 has witnessed a weak turnout of potential voters, primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the Littoral region, where our reporter Josephine Binzi spoke to the regional delegate of ELECAM, just 3,000 people got their names on the electoral register against 10,000 last year. Her report.
Today marks the end of the electoral list registration at the ELECAM office, and like previous years, an assessment meeting has been held by the delegation of the Littoral region. Various departmental delegates were sizing up strategies on their areas of command. The year 2020 has, however, been peculiar for these registrations.
Le bilan ne peut
A balance sheet can only be done when we consider the period which we are going through right now, which is a pandemic hit season. We are in a mixed year, which is a rough mixture of the electoral and revision season. We started the year with the twin elections, and the session taking place by mid-January could only begin on the 9th of February, and even by then, the period for revision was shortened. The registrations have taken place at certain posts, contrary to previous years, where the team went down to the population to get them registered. One of the difficulties imposed on them by the global health pandemic this year.
Une grosse régression, c'est-à-dire que l'année dernière nous avons terminé.
There has been a huge regression because last year over 100,000 persons were registered. This year we are still struggling to get just 3,000 persons to be registered, which is a very huge regression. But in one way or the other, it's understandable because the nation was going through a lockdown season, and many people took it upon themselves to be confined, whether the government imposed it on them or not. Though a very minute affluence in registrations, today, August 31, 2020, marks the official deadline of electoral lists.
And the list will once again be opened on the 1st of January 2021. That will be after ELECAM officials must have cleaned up the electoral register. The initiator of the Anglophone General Conference says that the security situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions is improving steadily. The Archbishop Emeritus of Douala, Christian Cardinal Toumi, who was guest on the program Hard Talk on STV, has also lashed out on separatist fighters for what he described as intolerance. Let's listen to him.
Killings now. It is not as serious now. The situation is getting better and better than it was yesterday. The first meeting I met to Kumbo, when the events were still seriously going on, it was horrible. We could see dead bodies along the road, abandoned, as if they were animals. It was horrible. But in February this year, I went to Kumwe again, and I will be going there again. The situation It's not perfect, but we cannot compare what is happening today with what was happening yesterday. It was horrible yesterday. Today, there are incidents that take place from time to time, not regularly as they,
As it was.
Many people were killed. I went to Kumbu then. I went at the earliest period of the events. I could not go to my village to celebrate Mass. The Amba boys did not allow me to go to Kikai, from where I come, Kaikalagi. But this time I was there 3 times, and I spoke with them to tell them where I agree with them, where I do not agree with them. They have a right to have their political opinions. Let them leave the other people to respect the political opinions of others. If their aim is to divide and have their own, all right, let them leave those who have the contrary view. And then let them found a party. There's no other way for them to come to power than to have their party with its philosophy, proposing to the English-speaking parts of the country.
Cameroon has been classified the 167th most efficient economy in the world in the year 2020. The country got a score of 46.1 over 100 points. The World Bank, which unveiled the results, says that Cameroon is amongst the most improved economies in the world after winning 10 points from the last classification. Economic indicators in the country are, however, falling due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the fall in commodity prices, and security shocks in the northwest and southwest regions, the far north region, as well as the east region of the country. The Pala Bridge in Marwa, chieftain of the far north region, has succumbed to the pressure of floods. The bridge collapsed over the night due to heavy rains. Electricity supply has also been cut off as the water washed away pylons which supplied electricity to most parts of the far north region. Our reporter Crystal Asexuele tells us that circulation to Mora, Kuseri, as well as to Chad has been cut off due to the situation.
These images that have been circulating on social media are no other than that of the Polar Bridge, which collapsed today, Monday, August 31, 2020, due to the torrential rains which have been falling in the capital city of the far north region for several weeks. This bridge connecting Marwa to Kuseri also connects the city to Mora as well as neighboring Republic of Chad. So far, no loss of human life has been reported, but an extensive material damage has been recorded. The consequences of the heavy downpour, several localities were equally swallowed up by the water. Villages in the Malvudea district in the Mayukani department are also affected, with thousands of accommodations and hectares of fields destroyed. This also extends to the district of Kalifu, Kaikai, and part of Kuseri town. Another consequence of these torrential rains is the disruption of electricity services in the far north region. In a communique from the regional delegate of the Electricity Distribution Company, NAO, in the said region, we learned that pylons collapsed on August 30, 2020, after a heavy rain in Marwa. Immediately, consequences of this incident: the towns of Marwa, Mokolo, Mora, Kaele, Bogo, Maga, Yagua, and Kuseri are all in the dark. The press release specifies clearly that the agents of the National Electricity Transport Company, Sonatrel, are mobilized for repairs.
10 days after the devastating floods which swept across the economic capital Douala, inhabitants of Mabanda in the Douala 4 municipality are still struggling to deal with the unfortunate fallouts. Though they are taking measures to preempt future occurrences, they are calling on the government to come to their aid. Crystal Asexuele once more.
The population of Mabanda Terminus Bonaberi in the Douala 4 municipality, one of the neighborhoods equally affected by the floods caused by the heavy downpour that occurred on Friday, August 21, 2020 in the economic capital of Cameroon. 10 days precisely after this incident, the inhabitants of this neighborhood are still struggling to deal with the situation.
We have already put 2 ground. Yes, the house is already up. So if we want to take the ground, we have to cement the house again. We have to move the zincs, and it cannot happen because there's no money. So we don't have to take it the way it's coming. You have to get up and then look for how we'll stand when the rain is falling.
When there's rain, it reaches our knees. We can't come out of the house, and the houses are all inundated, especially along the street. It's terrible there. It's terrible. We don't know what they have to do.
This notwithstanding, some of the inhabitants are deploying strategies to ward off the upcoming floods.
La pluie abondante qui descend justement nos entrées pratiquement ici à Mabanda.
Most of our road entrances here at Mabanda are not viable during these heavy downpours. So we adopted this cleaning up of gutters initiative to clear our gutters to permit us access these road entrances. This is an initiative from us, the population.
Plus ou moins ces eaux qui nous menacent.
Beyond this personal initiative from the inhabitants, they however cry out to the authorities to assist them with the cleaning up of gutters.
Just expect the government to help us, yes, to help us during the rainy season. Yes, if you can try to ameliorate, to help us to how can I say, to construct good roads for us, because like here there's no gutters. Gutters are not going through, so water cannot flow normally. Water is just standing. So if you can help us to even construct the gutters for water to go down, and yes, we'll be free here, because
you look at the gutters, they're all blocked. We don't have drainage. The main problem is drainage. We don't have drainage. I think that if the government can do something until we can have the drainage, there will be no water around here.
According to them, the situation will be less catastrophic if they have enough gutters and drainage systems, especially as weather forecasters announce the possibility of heavy downpours in the days ahead.
Post-traumatic stress disorder as well as suicide cases resulting from examination failure has been on the increase in the economic capital. Douala has been on the increase in the country, rather, with 3 BAPC candidates taking their own lives after they failed the examination. But how can parents and children deal with examination failure? That is a question our reporter Josephine Binzi put through to an expert in this report.
About that time of the year where successful and unsuccessful candidates of public exams in the French and English subsystem of education will experience mixed emotions based on the outcome of their results. The demise of about 3 BAPC students by suicide due to disappointment in their results raises eyebrows as to how parents ought to guide their adolescents based on the effects of their results.
Que nous avons aujourd'hui et qui va jusqu'au suicide de certains enfants
they are abandoned with the burden to deal with the pressure which is related to their results from school. The difficulty they are faced with are so huge that they can't deal with it regularly, and suicide to them may be a short court not to be faced with a difficult reality.
Pour ne pas faire face à une réalité en fait qui n'est pas la leur.
Dr. Somo further expounds on the role of parents when dealing with students' examination trauma.
Sur la responsabilité qui est celle
Parents have a role to play when it comes to what happens to their children after results are published. They, however, don't carry the sole responsibility. There's something called public perception of results, as well as the interpretation of results by parents. Parents have to be careful with their speech, and they equally have to be assisted by teachers and school authorities on how to handle their children's results during the period of classes, so that when these results are out, they know what to do.
Ou lorsque les enfants font face à des examens et que les résultats vont être proclamés.
Managing disappointments after the outcome of GCO and A levels, probatoire and back exams yet to be revealed will be determinant how these young Cameroonians pick up the broken pieces of the last academic year to face the 2020-2021 school year. Parents are, however, called upon to be cautious in words and actions irrespective of the outcome of their children's results.
Members of Parliament are obliged by law to open offices in order to facilitate consultations with their constituents, but most MPs do not even own one in the country. Political pundits say that this is against the law and measures must be taken to enforce the implementation of this order. John Paul Sama with the details.
It's almost impossible or difficult to point out a dedicated office or cabinet of a parliamentarian who is the representative of the people at the National Assembly. Very few or none have spaces sidelined for consultations with their constituent, as is the case in Douala. But one has made it a duty to keep his personal affairs away from his public duties.
Le cabinet me permet d'être visible à tout moment, de façon permanente sur le terrain, dans ma circonscription.
This cabinet permits me to be visible and available at any time in my area of control. It also ensures that I carry out my work here, and also for the members of my constituency to be able to come to me with their worries.
Je sois là ou pas, il y a des gens qui sont au cabinet, aux heures ouvrables, pour recevoir mes concitoyens.
As a hospital is to a doctor, a parliamentarian has to have a cabinet where he can carry out his duties.
Avoir des cabinets parlementaires, c'est même des instructions. Nous devons être visibles dans nos circonscriptions.
It's even an instruction for us to have a parliamentary cabinet. If I know where to meet a commissioner, a doctor, they also have to know where to meet me. And we have to keep our personal life away from our work.
Il faut dissocier ma résidence, n'est-ce pas, à mon cadre de travail. Donc, c'est une recommandation.
Some political analysts, however, say, according to the laws in place, having a cabinet is an obligation.
Le résultat du simple fait que, soit par l'ignorance des députés, soit alors par leur mauvaise foi, parce que
it's either they are ignorant or just bad faith, because it's clearly stated in Article 110 of the Internal Rules of Parliament that it is an obligation for a parliamentarian to have a chambers. And this has the mission of rendering the political debate vital, but we see on the field that it doesn't really exist, and it's a fault.
Ce qui est une véritable entorse à la loi, j'allais dire au règlement intérieur de l'Assemblée nationale.
He also adds that a control commission should be put in place to follow them up if they don't adhere to this. The amount given them for that function should be cut off, because it is public finance that is given for them to carry out their parliamentary duties.
Out of the country, the Republican National Convention portrayed President Donald Trump as a strong commander-in-chief, facing down enemies and demanding more allies. His opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, says that he will stand with allies of the United States and not dictators. We have more with the VOA.
In his acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention, President Donald Trump argued that his opponent, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, is a weak leader who will destroy the country.
Joe Biden spent his entire career outsourcing their dreams and the dreams of American workers, offshoring their jobs, opening their borders, and sending their sons and daughters to fight in endless foreign wars.
During the Democratic National Convention, Biden, vice president during the Obama administration, portrayed Trump as a dangerous leader who has ruined America's standing in the world.
I'll be a president who will stand with our allies and friends and make it clear to our adversaries the days of cozying up to dictators is over. Under President Biden, America will not turn a blind eye to Russian bounties on the heads of American soldiers.
The Democrats' foreign policy platform opposes forever wars, proposes less spending on national defense, and criticizes China's trade practices. Republicans continue to rally around President Trump's foreign policy goals, which he sums up as America First, a slogan he made famous during the 2016 campaign. Other foreign policy goals: bring American troops home and end reliance on China. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo lauded Trump's America First policies.
It may not have made him popular in every foreign capital, but it's worked.
The Democrats featured Republican Colin Powell, former Secretary of State under the George W. Bush administration, who said Biden will take care of American troops.
It comes from the experience he shares with millions of military families, sending his beloved son off to war and praying to God he would come home safe.
Trump's speech focused mainly on China in the context of the pandemic, trade relations, and outsourced jobs, claiming that Beijing would own the U.S. if Biden got elected.
The Republicans are talking about who is more hardline and who can be tougher on China. The Democrats are speaking about who can be more effective in competing with China. This isn't just about poking the dragon through bellicose speeches, insults, and accusations. This is about leveraging American strengths, increasing our competitiveness, working with allies, and using diplomacy to manage competition effectively in the service of American interests, in what is going to be a long-term, high-stakes, high-costs competition with China.
While the two candidates present starkly different views, foreign policy is not a deciding factor in the election.
It's rare for it to be a top 1, 2, or 3 considerations among voters, except during times of war. And now the big concerns have to do with COVID, they have to do with the economy, and concerns about character, about the kind of leadership that we're going to observe going forward, either under a Trump administration or a Biden administration.
Still, the candidates are expected to discuss it during the debates in September, including the issue of foreign interference in the November election. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Sports football. The head coach of the Intermediate Lions has called off 30 players for camp on September 15 ahead of the African Nations Championships, the CHAN. Coach Clement Aroga believes that the players are capable of winning the trophy on home soil when the competition kicks off next year in the country. John Paul Sama reports.
Among the 30 players called up to camp, Yves Clement Aroga Asensio has kept faith with some key names in the den. In the goalkeeping compartment, he has decided to go with Simon Lotte Nomosola, Dande Junior and Letizi Epane, all familiar foes, while the likes of Etame Ngombe, Thomas Etabawak, Do Alem Mukoko, and a good chunk of top defenders in the country's top flight make up the defensive block of the team. The training session, which is expected to kick off on September 15 at the CAF Excellence Center in Bankomo, will see Mark Ojonkongo, Ebonge Yannick, Pangelobe amongst the 13 midfielders called up, while 6 attackers are in the den, including last season's top scorer Leon Boyomo, Samuel Alen, Mbappe Müller and Arunandang. This list comes on the heels of the postponement of the local championship by Fecafoot to October, initially slated to begin on September 26. 3 months to the competition is, however, time for the players to come up to full fitness after over 5 months without competition as a result of the outbreak of the coronavirus.
And that wraps up this edition of the Primetime Newscast on STV. Thank you very much for watching. More news comes up at 8 p.m. in the French language. From us, it's good night. Bye-bye.